Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. My name is Mo Amir. Our featured guest tonight is the BC NDP MLA for Coquitlam-Millardville, as first elected in 2013. She served as the BC Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing from 2017 to 2020, and since 2020, she's been BC's Finance Minister, recently delivering a $1.3 billion budget surplus to the province. She is Minister Selina Robinson. Minister Robinson, thanks so much for being on the show. So nice to see you.
Thank you for having me, Mo. And before we get started, I understand.
Yes.
You have just received new pots and pans.
I have.
And
my first set of pots and pans, to be very clear.
So I have something to go with those pots and pans.
Oh, a gift.
A gift? Well, several.
Okay.
Because they're different stages. so this is from me to you. It is the cookbook for beginners.
Super easy cookbook for beginners.
Right.
Okay, I like it.
Now
Thank you.
This was the Great Rotisserie Chicken Cookbook.
Oh, I love rotisserie chicken.
But it also says 100 delicious ways to enjoy store-bought and home-cooked chicken. If you're really stuck, you can do store-bought.
I mean, I know how to enjoy store-bought home-cooked chicken, but I think I will enjoy this as well. So thank you so much. There's another one.
Because I have
a trilogy.
I have a free little library that
Okay.
I take care of at my home. This showed up this week.
Okay.
In my free little library. And it is the Hamlin All-Color Cookbook from 1960.
Wow, it looks well-worn.
And it has aspic recipes in it.
Wow.
I have tagged the most fascinating for you to consider. So now you have a collection of cookbooks.
You've set the bar high for future guests and future politicians. I
If
appreciate
you
it.
can read, Mo, you can cook.
You're going to hold me to that. I know you will. Let's get down to business, though.
Okay.
I know that politics is not a particularly accommodating place for women in particular. And we've all seen the incident with Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, where this man was rushing her and hurling abuse at her, and it was very threatening.
Chrystia, yes. What the are you doing in Alberta? You traitorous bitch! Get the out of this province!
You don't belong here.
When you saw that, what was your reaction? Is politics getting worse for women trying to get involved, or has it always been this way, but it's actually just more visible?
So I think sexism and misogyny and racism have always been present, Mo. I don't think that's new, but there is a new energy around it that is frightening. Mm-hmm. And I think that we all have a responsibility collectively to make sure that it doesn't continue. And we have to say something and we have to do something when we see these sorts of behavior. I think social media has really pushed it to an extreme. I think what we've seen our neighbors to the south in terms of the style of engagement or non-engagement, because it's just yelling at each other,
right.
I think is spilling up over here in Canada, and I think we have some serious things to consider as Canadians.
But do you think it's getting worse?
Oh, absolutely, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
People feel fine providing commentary that is rude, dismissive, disrespectful, vile. It's beyond mean. There's verbal violence, mm-hmm. and they'll do it on social media, and they'll do it in person. And that's not good for anybody.
So there have been some commentators, including people of color, women of color, saying, hey, we've been raising this flag for a long time. Why is it only a national discourse when it happens to Chrystia Freeland? Why aren't we being more expansive and inclusive and listening to more voices who have been raising this flag for years, perhaps?
I think we have seen it certainly for racialized women. We've also seen it in the LGBTQ community as well. And it has been getting worse there too. I think that when we see role models or people that are on the news or very well known, mm-hmm. we tend to see it a little bit more mm-hmm. And react more. But having said that, I think, governments, all orders of government, I think have a responsibility to make sure that women's voices, are heard and are respected and being able to, take a stand. I think it can't just be women taking a stand. Mm-hmm. I think men have to stand up too and say, this isn't okay. This is not how we treat our partners, our sisters, our mothers. This is not okay. We are taught to speak with people, even when we disagree with them,
right.
and still hang on to our manners.
I think the concern here, though, is that if we're only having this conversation when it happens to extremely prominent women of power, or you can even say privilege, then we are excluding, the underbelly of where this comes from and the roots of where it's come from, right?
We need to speak out all the time. It doesn't matter who is being disrespected or being hurt. We all have an obligation to say something. You see something, you say something. And as a government, we've been really, accelerating that work, making sure that women's voices, are heard. There's a lot more work to be done in terms of, gender-based violence work that we're doing. We're putting together a plan. My parliamentary secretary, Grace Laura, has been working on that. You'll be seeing that in a little while. She's been working with folks right across the sector, looking at gender-based violence and identifying that racialized women, Indigenous women, women of color, the LGBTQ community, they suffer way more than women of privilege, women of power, women, white women, for sure. And so but we all have an obligation to say something and to do something when we see it.
And so you've been in municipal politics, obviously in provincial politics as well. How does this affect recruitment? How do you convince people to come into politics when they see incidents like this and then hear other stories of how rough it can be? And it's not even just media or getting criticized. It's this very abusive culture that we have towards politicians and particularly women.
Yeah, it's getting harder. I mean, you and I have talked briefly about an incident that I had this summer on my Facebook, my personal Facebook, where I posted doing a Wordle. I got a hole in one, and it was 8:30 on a Saturday night, and a constituent just let me have it on Facebook, was angry that I wasn't working at 8:30 on a Saturday night. And then and normally I just delete those, right? Yeah. But I just felt like people need to see, this is what we put up with. And and then her response was, well, you should grow a thicker skin. And my response is always, as politicians, you don't want us to have thick skin because then we don't hear people.
Right.
We don't feel their pain. We don't understand perhaps what's going on for them. We need to be able to listen to people. And so, I'm all for criticism. I'm all for people saying you need to do more of this or less of that, for sure. But really, Saturday night, 8:30, I can't post a Wordle score. Like, it just...
Now, do you feel, and really quickly, do you feel like politicians and people in government have a responsibility to address what's happening in the culture when it comes to this toxicity? Is there a responsibility to perhaps tone down some of the rhetoric? And I'm not speaking about you specifically, but just in general.
Well, I think there is rhetoric that makes it worse. I mean, we certainly saw with the trucker stuff, going on, that people, feel like it's okay to swear at people who are doing their best to make decisions on behalf of British Columbians or Canadians. I even remember feeling unsafe around the Wet'suwet'en protests that we had at the legislature. This was before COVID, if you recall. And it felt really unsafe. People were violently angry, and their words were violent, and their actions were violent. And that, I think people say, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to put myself out there, put my family out there? And I think, I love democracy. I love that we get to pick people to represent us, to make decisions on our behalf. That is what we do, in a democratic state.
Absolutely.
And that's great. Well, we need to protect it. We need to make sure that there continues to be good people who do their best. I want people who will do their best to make decisions on my behalf.
Well, this is an important dialogue. I hope it becomes more expansive and more inclusive, and I hope it continues, because I don't think it's going to be solved with one incident or one conversation. So I appreciate your time tonight, and I know that we're going to chat a little more.
Thanks, Mo.
Thanks so much, Selina. Folks, she is BC's Minister of Finance. She is Minister Selina Robinson. For more with Minister Robinson, find This is VANCOLOUR wherever you listen to your podcasts, as we're going to record some overtime to discuss the province's finances, including that big $1.3 billion budget surplus, healthcare funding, and gas taxes. But for now, stick around, because Katie Merrifield will be here after the break to explain why she hates weddings. Weird, I know. Well, actually, the super serious debate about the super serious things is up next. My name is Mo Amir. This is VANCOLOUR.